I'm Anthony Antoine, and this is Fox 26 Crime Files. We start with the horrific details of an 18-year-old who investigators say was held captive in a house in Humble. As Fox 26's Damali Keith reports, law enforcement says she lived in a house of torture for at least a month.
Deputies did observe marks on her hands and legs, which would indicate restraints.
Before help arrived here on Foxmont Lane late Sunday, investigators say 31-year-old Jose Reyes and 29-year-old Jacqueline Macias were holding and torturing an 18-year-old girl here at this house in Humble.
After they basically started holding her against her will, they began sexually assaulting her and other things, and just a very, very evil thing.
Precinct 4 Constable Mark Herman says the 18-year-old victim met Jose Reyes and says Reyes coaxed the girl here to his house where 29-year-old Macias was waiting.
The whole script flipped like almost immediately, and she was immediately held captive, tied up, and held in a room for approximately 30 days. We don't know the exact amount of days, but close to 30 days or maybe a little even more than that.
Around 10 p.m. Sunday, the 18-year-old escaped, and even with her arms still bound, she was running to neighboring homes for help.
The lady stand up over there by the window. She showed me was arm only here, but I don't know what size.
They didn't leave her for long because they were back probably within 10 minutes.
It's very scary because, you know, my daughter, 18, wants to go out, do stuff with her friends, and I'm the one to tell her, you know, everything that's out there because, you know, just it's getting crazy.
Investigators say Reyes and Macias were arrested as soon as they returned to the house, and Constable Herman says the 18-year-old knew when they left, and that's when she worked to get out of some of her restraints, and she was able to somehow escape and get to neighbors, and that's when the neighbors called 911. Now Reyes and Macias are charged with kidnapping. More charges are expected. In Humble, I'm Damali Keith, Fox 26 News.
And the very next day, the accused kidnappers were in court, and Damali was there.
The state is going to has an obligation to give us any evidence they may have, any statements from the complaining witness, so that we could prepare the case and the defense.
That evidence discovery phase is the next legal step for Jose Reyes and Jacqueline Macias. When the two appeared here separately in court, this hearing was an initial arraignment.
My client and the co-defendant, which is his wife, they have a 2-week-old kid who's currently right now in NICU due to the child being born early.
So Macias was giving birth just 2 weeks ago. The 18-year-old girl says she's been captive here in this Humble home, being terrorized, raped, and restrained for the last 30 days after she says she was lured here by Reyes. Precinct 4 says a chain and several padlocks were found in a bedroom in the house.
But it was not a stranger-on-stranger type relationship. The actual relationship, those two individuals knew one another very well.
Because my client has no prior criminal record, of course, she's presumed innocent, and she will probably plus bond and go home.
Bond for Macias has been set at $50,000. Reyes is being held on a $95,000 bond. Why is his higher?
Because of the allegations that my client was the one that had the relationship with the complainant. There were also some allegations that he may have engaged in some type of sexual contact with the complainant while she was allegedly in custody within his home.
Well, it's something we see all the time. A fight at an after-hours club ends in gunfire, but this time, family says the innocent woman was shot by someone she trusted. Here's Gabby Hart.
It just doesn't feel fair that she's gone.
23-year-old Princess Ortega was shot and killed on July 8th. It happened outside of an after-hour club called Karma, located on South Gessner near the West Park Tollway. 17-year-old Jermaine Torres has been arrested and charged with her murder. Her mother and sister, who chose not to show their faces, say their family had just recently met Torres, but he was the half-brother of their cousin, making him a part of the family as well.
Because she just wanted to stop the fight.
Her sister tells Fox 26 the night of the shooting, Princess was with Torres and her other cousin, along with a few other young men. They say the men she was with got into an altercation inside of the club with another group of men. That argument spilled outside.
My sister had gone out and got in the middle trying to stop the fight.
And that's when they claim Torres, who was with the group standing behind Princess, opened fire.
Then my sister was still in the middle when the shots were started.
Paro tras otro, tras otro.
She's saying it wasn't just one shot that he fired, it was one after another, but she got hit in the back.
Princess, a wife and mother of 3 young children, died in that parking lot. Paramedics also rushed a second victim, described as a 29-year-old man, to the hospital in critical condition.
According to the detectives, there was only shots from his side. So he was only one shot of firing.
Princess's family says it's a harsh reality, knowing that the man accused of this shooting was someone that Princess knew and trusted, and someone who should have been protecting her.
And he was firing the shots, and he must have seen when she fell, but he didn't even stop.
Pero sigue. Siguió. O sea, no,
He just kept shooting. When he stopped, he didn't stay and help, he ran.
A bizarre jugging incident targets a local landscaping crew, but this wasn't any simple robbery, that's for sure. Here's Fox 26's Randy Wallace.
Anything could have happened, and to be honest, I didn't want to lose my life.
This landscaper asked not to be identified, so we'll call him Mike. He has 5 guys who work with him. Friday the 30th was payday.
I went ahead and went to the bank while my guys were working here.
Mike didn't know it at the time, but a black Jaguar followed him from the bank at Kirby and Bissonnette back to his job site in the 3700 block of Purdue near West U.
This masked person tried to get into my truck and took my money, and I started wrestling with him.
The masked robber pulled a gun on Mike.
It was paycheck for the guys, so I was like, one way or another, I need to try to get that money because there was no way to recover that money.
The 5 guys working nearby went after the robber.
They approached him with a hoe and started hitting him, and he ended up running some other different way.
The robber left the running Jaguar behind, so Mike jumped in.
I got into his car, and I was going to pursue him on his own car, but I wasn't able to because I didn't know how to maneuver that car. It was a really nice newer model.
The robber returned in a second getaway car. He was after the Jaguar and his phone. Once again, he pulled a gun on Mike, but didn't fire.
Yes, I thank God for that.
Mike says it's been hard to recover from the money he lost. He's married with kids and the family's sole provider.
I have to keep working. I have to keep doing what I do because it's the only thing I know how to do.
A Magnolia man went before a federal judge this week charged with running a sextortion scheme. He's accused of hacking into hundreds of victims' personal social media accounts and blackmailing them with their own intimate photos and videos. Fox 26's Shelby Rose looks at this case and how often it happens.
Strangers online are just as dangerous as strangers in real life.
This is 23-year-old Andrew Venegas, a Magnolia man now federally charged with running a nationwide sextortion scheme, allegedly hacking into the personal social media accounts of more than 1,000 victims across the country, many of them under 18, accessing their intimate photos and videos and using them for blackmail.
You have children out there who are believing the lies they're being fed by these extorters. That is, your world's going to crumble unless ...
It's really just a crime of opportunity, targeting anybody online.
In some instances, court records say Venegas posted them on a website and would blackmail the victims, saying they either had to send more or pay him through Bitcoin for them to get deleted. The FBI says schemes like this is more common than you may realize.
We see an exponential increase, but we think that it would be equal, if not greater, the number of victims that are potentially out there that are suffering in silence.
They claim it's one of the most underreported crimes due to the shame and guilt associated with it. And Martinez says they have seen an increase of victim suicides that result from these crimes. So they urge parents to have an open discussion with their children so it will get reported if it does happen.
The biggest thing that you can do for your child is to let them know that you are there, to let them feel comfortable to tell you, and then also evidence.
Schiffer says it's important to reiterate to your kids to never delete anything, even if it may be embarrassing, because this evidence not only helps prosecution, but it's paramount to investigators to find out who the perpetrator is and if there are any other victims. But it's still very difficult for the FBI to catch them.
It's very, very difficult to, one, locate them, and then two, actually, once they are located, have the evidence in order to show that they were behind the actual crimes.
Only on Fox, a terrifying 2 months for one Houston woman known as a social media influencer who we're told is being detained in Dubai. Fox 26's Damali Keith explains.
It also could result in prison time. So it's very scary.
The trip turned terrifying for Tiara Young Allen when her mom says she was a passenger in a friend's rental car and they got into an accident there in Dubai. Tina Baxter says when her daughter went to the company to retrieve her ID, credit card, and other items left in the rental, Baxter says it did not go well.
She found out that she could only receive those items if she paid an undisclosed amount of money. She dealt with a very aggressive individual, a young man there who was screaming at her.
Baxter says her 29-year-old daughter ultimately yelled back at the rental car agent, she says resulting in her being charged for screaming there in Dubai.
And so she is in jail for one reason and one reason alone. She raised her voice. In that country, a female is not even allowed to raise her voice. If she raises her voice, it's punishable by jail time.
It's been very emotional. There are some days I stay up all night crying.
They have a strict law system that is really based on theocracy.
This website warns, quote, laws and customs are very different, so be aware of your actions to ensure they don't offend while in United Arab Emirates. Now, after Baxter says her daughter was charged with screaming in Dubai, her passport has been taken, and the American social media influencer who works as a truck driver can't leave the UAE, according to her mom. And her mom says she's been placed under a travel ban pending the outcome of the investigation.
It's very frightening. The longer she's been there, the more reality has started to kick in.
In our opinion, she did not commit a crime. Don't punish women for doing the same thing a man can do in Dubai. It's not fair and it's not right.
The 29-year-old does now have an attorney there in Dubai, and her mom says she's told she could face jail time because there is surveillance video of her screaming at the rental car agent. Now, we and her loved ones have reached out to U.S. and UAE embassies, so is government assistance available to her? Do they plan to step in? I'm still awaiting responses. Near downtown Houston, I'm Damali Keith, Fox 26 News.
All right, Damali, thanks. And that can happen to just about anyone. So what should Americans do and what should Americans know before traveling abroad? Here's Fox 26's Gabby Hart.
That advice, don't leave America acting like an American, is absolutely good advice.
Senior legal analyst Chris Tritico says, I didn't know isn't enough to get you off the hook if you're caught breaking the law in a foreign country.
Here you have to prove that you intended to violate the law in most circumstances. But in other countries, it probably does not matter. For instance, in Thailand, spitting on the sidewalk is a crime.
Many Americans learned this the hard way, like 29-year-old Tiara Allen, a Houston woman who's been detained in Dubai for 2 months now. Her charge? Screaming in public.
So it's very scary.
Last week, Fox 26's Damali Keith spoke exclusively with Tiara's mother, who claims that she got into a dispute with a worker at a rental company. He yelled at Tiara, and her crime was yelling back.
In that country, a female is not even allowed to raise her voice.
The Middle East is a very draconian place, especially for women. And so if you're going to travel in a place like the Middle East and you're a woman, know that.
As minuscule as her offense may seem, Tritico says there's nothing the U.S. government can do to get her off the hook.
You're subject to the law of that country, and the United States can't just come in and say, we're the United States, let our people go.
Many people see the high-profile efforts to secure the freedom of people detained overseas, like Brittany Griner, for example, and they think those same efforts will happen for every American.
Politics got them out. There are other Americans detained in Russia that were not detained for political reasons, and they're still detained in Russia. Take a few minutes to learn those customs and those laws like that you should know before you go.
Gabby Hart, Fox 26 News.
Yeah, that's good advice. Take a few minutes and learn those customs. Only on Fox here tonight, a Houston man is suing a Katy apartment complex and a security guard following a bizarre incident that left him facing criminal charges. Here's Fox 26's Randy Wallace.
I'm thinking I'm the one that called 911, and now I'm the one locked up. It was hard for me to accept.
Carlton Border says he went to Kingsland West Apartments located at 18,325 Kingsland Boulevard on September 21st of last year to visit a friend.
The security officer was downstairs and he just started yelling, "Is there a problem?" And I had no idea he was directing that towards me because nothing was happening where I was.
The lawsuit accuses security guard Jose A. Herrera of slamming a bag filled with Taco Bell food against Border's head. Border says the altercation turned physical.
And then I turned around and I started asking, "What's going on? Why are you doing this?"
Border says the security guard pulled a stun gun on him.
That's when I called 911.
Border says he left and put the strange encounter behind him. But nearly 2 months later, Border is arrested and charged with felony aggravated assault. He spent 2 days in jail. The charges were dismissed due to insufficient evidence.
Well, we've all heard of shopping while black. We've all heard of driving while black. But this is a new one. This is now visiting a friend while black.
Attorney George Edwards has filed a lawsuit on Border's behalf. The defendants are Signal 88, a.k.a. Signal 88 Security, their security guard Herrera, and Kingsland West Apartments.
Why is Mr. Herrera still employed at that apartment complex? Why does Mr. Herrera not have an active license to be a security guard? Our client wasn't running from the police. He wasn't threatening anybody. He didn't have any weapons.
It was just really unbelievable.
Home burglaries are high in Houston, but not all agree on how high. But numbers don't really matter much. What does is preventing them from happening. Here's Damali Keith.
I think that's a little bit shocking. Why do you think that is?
It does concern me, and I work from home. So basically, I'm at home, but I don't come to my house because, like any Texans, we are waiting for them.
HPD Detective Ken Neely, who served over the robbery division for the last 16 years, says overall burglary numbers are actually trending downward in the city.
I think the numbers are definitely misleading. I looked at our numbers, and over the last 3 years, the numbers in Houston police that we responded to over the last 3 years has gone down.
Contrary to popular belief, the FBI says most burglaries happen during the daytime when people are at work or at school. Detective Neely encourages people to invest in a security system, surveillance cameras, and avoid posting on social media when you're out of town.
We often recommend that people to post those pictures upon their return.
No one feels safe anymore, truly. You see, we mentioned these blatant crimes, broad daylight, people checking their mail, taking out their trash, walking their dogs, running errands, things we didn't used to see. This lack of regard for human life.
Crime Stoppers believes the brazen nature of these types of crimes caught on camera may have attributed to why many Houstonians claim they don't feel safe anymore.
Whether the numbers are up or dipped down, we don't feel where we need to be. There's always more work to be done. Certainly the types of criminal activity, the broad daylight, the blatant lack of regard for others, their lives, their well-being.
And that is this week's Fox 26 Crime Files.